Hi boys and girls, today we will be glazing your clay projects, and glaze is a special kind of paint for clay. And basically what it is, it looks like paint, but after we paint it on to our clay projects, we put it back into the kiln and the glaze melts, and it's actually melted glass so that it becomes really shiny and glossy like this. So it's actually melted glass. And so this is a material that we have to be careful with. It's not the same as paint. So when you're using glaze, I have all of these samples on a board with the name of the glaze. The glaze color when you're painting it on doesn't always look like it will look after you put it in the kiln. So when we heat up the glaze, the colors change and it becomes glossy. So you need to look at the sample before deciding what color of glaze you're going to put on, because they are different. Okay, so make sure that you check that out. And so I'll have this glaze sample sheet, and then the glaze will be in little cups with the name labeled on the top. So make sure you always keep the lid with the cup so that we don't get those mixed up. All right, so once you have chosen your colors, you have your containers, you might have to share them with a friend, you will start to glaze. And so I have some brushes that are pretty thick, because when you glaze, you want to cover every part of whatever you're glazing, and you want to cover and you need to get into any cracks. So a lot of our clay projects, we have texture, so we actually kind of need to like poke into the texture to try to get that color in there. If there's a white spot on your clay, it will stay white even after we put it into the kiln. So you really, these brushes you don't have to be gentle with. You can squish that glaze into those cracks, and it's gonna take some time, okay? So you're gonna cover your entire, whatever you are glazing, your ceramic piece, and glaze. Now the other thing about glaze is you can't just do one coat. My rule when we're glazing is that you should do 3 coats of the color that you want. If you only do 1 coat, you will see through the color that you painted on, and it won't look as bright and beautiful as you might want it to look after it comes out of the kiln. So you need to do, I'm gonna do 1 whole coat here, and then we'll do 2 more. So it does dry pretty fast, so that's one nice thing about this, is it dries pretty quickly. So by the time I get all the way around this piece, I could probably start my 2nd coat. And the whole time I'm just making sure to kind of dab and get into the cracks. Another rule with glazing, so I'm still working on my 1st coat, but another rule with glazing is we cannot get any glaze on the bottom of our creation. And the reason for that is because this is melted glass, it melts in the kiln. And if we have it on the bottom, when it melts, it's going to stick to the shelf of the kiln. And the only way for me to get this off of the shelf if it's stuck with glaze is by breaking it. So you really have to be careful not to get any glaze on the bottom of what you're making, because it will end up getting broken. Okay, so that's what this does when it's in the kiln. It is melting the glass, and that's how it sticks to your clay project. You also want to make sure that you get nice and close to the edges, so I'm going to be a little bit more careful as I get by my flower that I made. Okay, so I have my 1st coat is all done, and it's not completely dry yet, so I'm gonna go and I'll set this brush down, and maybe someone else could use your brush, and that way you don't have to clean them out. But now I'll pick another color to paint on my flowers while I'm waiting for this to dry before I do my 2nd coat. All right, so to do my flower, I chose a grape color, so purple, to do these leaves. And again, this dries pretty quickly, so I'm quick brushing on the tops of the leaves, but I also want to make sure that I'm getting the sides. So if this would stay, if I didn't paint it, it would stay white, and it wouldn't be shiny, and it would kind of stand out and look kind of weird if I missed a spot and just left it white. And again, even with this flower, I'll want to make sure that I do 3 coats, and this will dry pretty quickly. And just make sure you're flipping over the project so that you can see all parts of it so that you don't miss any spots. And even when you come to bring it up to me to get to go in the kiln, I'll probably look it over for you and make sure that you have covered everything really well. So while I'm waiting for that to dry, I'm grabbing a second color for my flower, so I'm gonna have some red petals on this flower too, making sure to get the sides of the petals again, and then I'll go back and add 2 more coats on my petals because they'll dry really, really quickly because they're so small. Now, when I do my second coat of something, I'm not going to take as much time on this. I'm gonna kind of brush over it and not worry quite as much about getting into the cracks because I've already done that the first time. This time I'm just making sure my flat areas are really gonna have bright areas of color. So I'm going pretty quickly for my second coats. You will want to go quickly too so that you can get your project glazed in your 1 class time that we have before we go and put them into the kiln. Now, my second time around, I am noticing some spots that I maybe didn't get the first time. So then you might go back and fill those in and really make sure you're getting every part. If you have time to do 3 coats, I want you to do 3 coats, but we have to get at least 2 on to this project. So once I've done my green coat again, one more time, I'm making sure not to get on the bottom, then I would set that brush down. I'm gonna work on my petals. Now purple is a pretty strong color, so I'm only going to do 2 coats on my purple. So that's already done, and then I'll do, red is also a pretty strong color, but I would still do 3 coats. And I'm looking underneath my petals, making sure to get every part of my project covered. Okay. So the biggest rules with glazing are making sure that you have 2 to 3 coats. You're not painting the bottom, and you're making sure to keep your lids with your colors and matching them up when you go to put them away. I love glaze. I love to see what they look like after they come out of the kiln, and I'm excited to see how you glaze your projects today. Good luck.